Okay, on the surface, yeah, Overwatch is a fast mechanical FPS. We all know this. But if you ever thought, like, we should have won that fight, or how do we lose with our ultimate advantage, then you're missing how the game truly actually works. Because Overwatch, deep down inside, is a turn based game. You just don't know it yet. And once you understand this, your decision making, your ultimate usage, and everything else going into your wins, into your fights, and those fights that you win, they will improve immediately. So, hear me out here as I explain why. So most players treat Overwatch like constant chaos. There's so many ults, so many things happening, so many abilities and cooldowns being used. Everyone smashes their keyboard, presses a ton of buttons at once, and hope it works. But higher level players, they don't do that. Well, sometimes they do, but just not all the time, right? Higher level players, they wait, they bait, and then they respond. Not because they're slower, but because they're playing turns. They're playing chess, right? Let me show you what that means, or let me explain to you what that means. A turn in Overwatch is when one team forces an action, and the other team then has to respond. A cooldown, right? An ultimate, a Suzu, an ability, a push, a flank. Somebody's doing something, and that's their turn. You're then responding with what's your turn. Hence, turn-based game. So Ana uses her sleep. How am I going to react to that and respond? That's her turn. She used her sleep dart and missed. What can I do now on the enemy side to respond with my turn? Same thing with Kiriko and Suzu. A tank who pushes space, a DPS who forces recall on Tracer or Fade on Moira. Once that happens, the turn is over. Now it's your turn, or the other team's turn, to respond while you're missing resources. So, one example of like cooldowns being mini turns, right? Not big turns, mini turns. These cooldowns are the smallest turns in the game. So Winston jumps in. That's a turn. The enemy uses Suzu as response. Now Suzu is gone. Her mini turn on Kiriko has been used. That means the next turn now favors Winston's team. Winston used his mini turn, his cooldown jump, which isn't as great of an ability as Suzu, and he baited that out. You waited for the turn to end, and now you're punishing what's missing. She doesn't have Suzu anymore. That means she's more vulnerable for the team to get anti-nated, or for Junker Queen to ult, and she can't Suzu that ultimate. So you're using that mini cooldown in response to whatever they did, right? So they then responded with their mini cooldown, and that mini cooldown was basically more valuable. Now you're able to take advantage of it. Same thing with like Fade on Moira. Once Moira uses her Fade, very vulnerable. How are you going to punish that? How are you going to respond? And you got to start thinking about this as a game. You're playing chess. They moved their pawn. Now you moved another piece into as a response to that pawn move. So you have to think about it. You have to truly think about everything that you're doing as a turn-based game, right? Another thing is, speaking of mini turns being cooldowns, big turns are ultimates. Ultimates are not panic buttons. Like, please don't think of them that way. Never, ever panic. I know it's hard to. Sometimes you just respond and panic ult. I make that mistake all the time. I need to be better with it, right? But they are essentially turn skipping tools. They are big turns. You use Blade, and then you respond with a beat, or respond with Transcendence. You shatter on Reinhardt, and the enemy Baptiste responds with their lamp. You EMP as Sombra, and if you didn't get the Zenyatta in that ult, you respond with Transcendence, right? The mistake most players make is trying to win the fight on their own. Doing this big ult, and they're dry blading into full support ults. They're shattering into lamp. They're EMPing without the team being in position, so there's zero follow-up. The ultimate didn't fail you. You failed yourself with timing. So timing is the reason you failed. So why ult advantage still loses fights? You have more ults and still lost? That's because you didn't force a response first. You stacked ults instead of trading turns. You didn't force any cooldowns before you did it. Like I said, Suzu can counter Junker Queen's entire ult. Well, why didn't you bait that out first? A lamp can keep somebody alive behind like a shield or something. You didn't break down Sigma's shield, you decided to grab, they still had Suzu and a shield, still had Lamp, or still had Beat or Transcendence. Before committing your win condition ult, you need to make sure the fight isn't already over. You need to make sure that you didn't force cooldowns appropriately. And if you didn't, you didn't force those appropriately, why are you using your ultimate? You have to make sure you bait these things out and be patient and then punish them when that does happen, right? So tempo is how fast you take turns as well. And everyone in low rank games usually just press a bunch of buttons and everything just happens immediately. You use your Suzu or your anti-nade, your sleep dart, you use your lamp. It's just not used appropriately, or you just go in and you ult and you nano blade and you forget to even track ultimates or figure out what's going on. And the enemy team has Lamp, Suzu, they have maybe they're playing Lucio or Zenyatta and they still have Transcendence or their Beat. So everyone just presses everything immediately. There's no baiting, there's no patience. In high rank games, usually the slow turn is the first turn, right? You jump in with Winston, you see what cooldowns you bait out. Maybe you have Sigma, Genji, Ana ults, and you go in slow with your first turn on Sigma and you use his ultimate to try and bait out a Suzu, to try and bait out a Lucio Beat or a Transcendence. You get the appropriate people in that slow first turn, they use those abilities, and now you quickly and fastly punish them with Nano Blade, right? They use those abilities on a Sigma ult, you got it off, you got them to use the abilities, now you can go in a Nano Blade and wipe the team. So there's an immediate collapse afterwards. So the better the players, the shorter and cleaner the winning turn becomes, right? You have to think critically and logically about what's happening in front of you. Think of it as a turn-based game, and things will start to line up and be more clearer for you to win these fights, these win conditions, right? So you have to start thinking like that. Junker Queen has ult. She hasn't used it in a while. You're playing Kiriko. Am I gonna Suzu to keep someone alive when maybe I could focus more on healing in that situation, right? So try to keep the person who is engaging the enemy team alive instead of just quickly pressing the button using your Suzu. Because once you do that, Junker Queen's gonna fly in, get your whole team antied, and you're just gonna lose that team fight. So you have to start thinking, well, what's happening? Their tank is pushing. How am I going to respond on support? Same goes for like DPS or tank roles. Who's doing what and how I'm going to respond to it. So think of it as these cooldowns being mini turns, small turns, and ultimates being big turns. How do I get to effectively use my ultimates on the enemy team and vice versa, right? How do I best defend myself against it? You know, people haven't used their ult. You're tracking it. You're keeping in your front of your mind, like, oh, they haven't pressed their ultimate in like a minute, so they probably haven't, right? Let's say you lose a team fight and it's control point. You go in, you have 2 ults, and 3 other people on your team are close to their ultimate, and the enemy team has 3 ults and 2 other people who are kind of like maybe 50% away towards their ultimate. You go into this fight, you engage with your ults, and you lose the fight, right? Now you know the enemy team, let's say they use 3 ults to win, you used the 2 you had and you lost. And it's the beginning of the control point and they cap it. Now you think with your team, okay, 2 to 3. 2 ults to 3 ults. They now have less ults than us because we're going to be close to having 3 ults on our side. So we have to fight fast now, right? So we need to go in and punish them on the next fight. Otherwise, maybe you wait too long and the enemy team gets to charge their ults and now they're on par with you. So you have to think about like what's been used and how quickly it's been used and how quickly someone can obtain their ult. So once you start thinking that way, right, you start thinking critically about the game and you're able to make better decisions. So here are the rules that you can use today. Never ult first, in my personal opinion, unless you're forcing response. You ult first with Sigma to force a response from the enemy supports to use their cooldowns or use their big turns, their ults, as a response. To then Nano Blade afterwards. You have follow-up, right? You have a follow-up ult. So you track the enemy cooldown or their ult as a second rule. You now know that that cooldown was used or the ultimate has been used in a while and then they used it, so you're tracking it. Think every 60 to 90 seconds, no matter who you're playing, they're probably going to have their ultimate. After the enemy uses something important, you need to punish and push immediately. They use that Transcendence, they use that Lucio beat, punish them, right? You don't need perfect tracking because you'll never be perfect. You won't be able to see their timers and see the percentage of their ults that they have. You just need to recognize when the turn ends and when you're going to respond. So, Overwatch isn't about non-stop fighting, even though that's always happening on your screen. It's about who acts, who responds, and who's out of options. So, start playing turns, and then the game suddenly just slows down for you, even when it looks so chaotic on your screen. Anyways, I really do hope this helped you think and see Overwatch differently. So drop a like, subscribe, comment if you like this video, and let me know what you'd like to see next. As always, take care.